So what I'm going to do here is talk you through the next step of the written explanation. If you remember, the last video looked at my notes and my planning from the written explanation, which is over here. So what I've done is open up two screens, and you can see as I click backwards and forwards, I might cover up stuff. And then what I have over here is what I've taken from my notes and my planning and put into distinct paragraphs. You'll see a few things that I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to go through and read each paragraph. This is my first draft, so there are probably going to be mistakes in this. But as I read it aloud, hopefully I'll find them and I'll be able to fix them as well. Remembering, I have not wrote this creative piece, so I'm literally making this up, which did make this a little bit of a challenge. This did take me a little bit of time to do because I didn't have my original to keep going back to. So let's have a look at what I've done. Here we've got the form, and so what I've got in my first paragraph is the form. You can see I've used first person, and using first person is fine because this is what you did. So you really should use first person in your written explanation. The use of the word decided is a really good start for this. I decided to write. It tells me what you thought about and that you actually did think about it because you decided to write about something. So let me read through it. I decided to write about the swagman who the driver's wife remembered as being in the horrors. I wanted to provide a reason for the swagman's appearance on her doorstep and create a more sympathetic character for the person the driver's wife remembers. Swagmen are part of the Australian culture. They are often romanticised, but just as often demonised as in the case in Lawson's The Drover's Wife. I chose to write in third person as it helped me mirror Lawson's original text as he too wrote in third person. It allowed me to distance myself from the character I felt that I could not really get inside or empathise with that well. By writing in third person, the reader of my story is looking onto the swagman. Much, did say that there would be some mistakes, much like the reader of Lawson's story watches the drover's wife. So if I go back over here, I can see that what I said I did was a third person narrative. So one of the things that I'm doing is constantly all the time checking that I've done it. So there's third person narrative. There is third person narrative here. So that's how I've made sure that I've got my form. It helped me stand apart from the swagman. So here, it helped me to distance myself from my character. And so that's where I've got it over here, and I can see that I've distanced myself from him. This is really important because it allows me to say exactly what I've done and why I've done it. So you can see that this information over here has become sentences over here. As I continue, my next paragraph is going to look at language. So, like Lawson, I should have a comma in here. Let's see if I can do this. For some reason, it's giving me highlighting tools. Yeah, like Lawson, I felt that employing the Australian voice was imperative. Imperative means necessary, that there isn't a choice here. I read into Lawson's description of him. Okay, I have a problem here. I need to change this out because at the moment I haven't said who him is. So I need to say of the swag man, saying, "All right, Mum," in a cringing tone, to mean that this particular gullered-faced swagman was embarrassed by his plight. This is a direct quote from Lawson's original text. So again, I am showing knowledge of Lawson's original text. I've looked up the word cringing to double check my understanding and see that yes, cringing does mean embarrassed and can mean embarrassed. And then I show this to the reader by adding the swagman hanging his head, decreasing his height and bluster as he walked away. So this is what I would be quoting from my original text if I had wrote my original text. And I've been able to show the fact that I believe that this swagman actually is putting on a front. So he's worked out that my story is revolving around the fact that he needs food and he needs somewhere to stay, and he thinks the way to get this is by intimidation. But in actual fact, he doesn't want to be this person. And I've shown this by writing about how he walks away. So by adding the swagman hanging his head and decreasing his height and bluster as he walked away. Probably I should have said the swagman hung his head, decreasing his height and bluster as he walked away, but I'm going to leave it like that because actually I'm not. I'm going to change that. Swagman hung his head, decreasing his height, Height, and blustered as he walked away, to show that this man is not really a bad man, but rather a man who's down on his luck. Rather a man who is down on his luck. I furthered this idea by allowing him to remember a better time when his clothes and boots were shiny and new. Again, quoting from my own work to show the language I've used. When talking to the drover's wife, I have him use words like g'day, use, and tucker to make him sound Australian. I could add here that that is reminiscent of what Lawson does, but I don't need to because I've talked about the language here. Okay. My next paragraph will look at the audience. So here's my audience over here, and now I've put it into words. Let me move all this up so we can see the rest of it. I believe that people who have read The Drover's Wife will enjoy my edition. I hope that it will allow them to consider the swagman might be just like the drover, a decent man who's just going through a bad patch. I saw him as a slightly different character to the other bushman the drover's wife remembers, mainly because he's such a recent visitor. While my story can be read without first reading The Drover's Wife, it would help my reader of my story to know Lawson's writing, as it would help them understand the view of Australia and Australians that he put forward. One of a harsh, dry country full of strong, tough people. So that's the audience. And I've justified why I think that it would help them to know Lawson's original text. I will make mention or discuss that notion in a little bit through my purpose and my context as well. But let's have a look at this. Throughout the writing process, I continue to keep in mind my goal of presenting a softer side to the swagman. So this is my purpose. Another word for purpose is goal. Like, my purpose was to present a softer side to the swagman, and my goal is to present a softer side to the swagman. I'm thinking about my language, so I'm writing something that's just slightly different. I aim to show his embarrassment at having asked for food. To stick to this aim, I focused mainly on his feelings as he was told to go, writing that he understood her worry, but just wanted somewhere to sleep that wasn't in the dirt. So again, I've quoted Lawson's writing. This is his original words, but then I've quoted what I might have had in my own story. I look to explain the history of the swagman by, let's fix up this, by having him remember his first few nights on the track, reminiscing about the feeling of freedom, but then moving to his feelings, there's more than one feeling, of loneliness and isolation after 5 years of wandering the outback. Through this, I hope to instill a feeling of empathy in my readers for the plight of the swagman. Okay, so this is my purpose. I really want to instill, so my goal up here, and then down here, coming back to my purpose, to install a feeling of empathy. So I've got a couple of goals here. To present a softer side and to help the readers actually try and identify or see that this swagman was not a really nasty person. My next thing is the context, which the context is set a little bit by the writing that you are mirroring or you're drawing your ideas from. So the word as suggests this straight away. So as I drew inspiration from The Drover's Wife, and I really should have this technically, like this or underlined, because I'm not talking about her anymore, I'm talking about the book or the story. My context was firmly set in 1890s outback Australia. I needed to highlight some aspects of the original story. To do this, I started my story as the swagman approached the house. This enabled me to use some of Lawson's original description of bush all around, bush with no horizon. So what I'm saying here is that if you didn't know Lawson's original writing, so I am mentioning or alluding or suggesting that knowing the story would help you. I've also suggested and firmly stated my context. I've used the word context was firmly set, so there's no problem in doing that. In quoting the original work, I've allowed those who have read The Drover's Wife, again, let's get this done a little bit correctly, and I'll go up and change the other ones afterwards, to know the context. Readers will have already picked up on the similarities and know the setting. I've created the sense of the drover's wife being threatened by deliberately writing the swagman knew the only way to get food was to intimidate the single woman by herself. So I'm suggesting the context that she is by herself. Obviously somewhere I'd need to bring in her children. But what I've said here, by repeating by herself, allowed me to highlight the fact that she was alone. Then I've imagined the ending of my story. Now you have the ending of your story, so you can put this sort of sentence in. Finishing my story with the swagman knew his currently full belly would not last long. He had only gained one meal from the drover's wife, not enough to sustain him for long. Suggest to the reader that this character will continue on his way, searching for the next farm. I'm going to cross that out, and in writing this, I would probably go back to my last sentence and get rid of that first long. Otherwise, I'm repeating the same word, and it doesn't sound very good. So, going through all this, hopefully you can see that what we've done is start with our plan, and then for each section, we've done a paragraph on each section. Now, this is not perfect. In fact, I would go through and I would probably change all the drover's wives to lowercase because simply that's not, well, it's the title of the text. It's not her name. So she doesn't necessarily need capital letters here. If her name was Margaret, you would use capital letters because obviously that's her name. And I would go through and put in italics and underline all the titles of the text. So this is very much my first draft, and I do need to go back over and fix up some information. But you can see that what we are doing is planning and then writing. Now, I know a lot of you would go, but how long did that take you to do? Obviously, I have, as I said several times, I haven't done the original creative piece. So I had to imagine all this. But all up, this has taken me probably about an hour. But remember, I've had a lot of practice at this. So I would consider that it would take you some time to write your written explanation, and you are going to have to take the time. But if you plan it first and then step through each paragraph, like I've done here, hopefully you'll be able to put together your written explanation. Hope this video has helped you. Please ask your teachers if you need any more ideas or guidance.